Happening now, we are live at the scene of what's been a standoff in Andover, where there was also a structure fire. We'll have the very latest. Plus, violence in the streets of Madison, Wisconsin. A lawmaker taking a photo at a demonstration last night says he was attacked by 8 to 10 people. And youth sports are back. What you need to know as your kids get the green light to compete. Fox 9 News starts right now. And thank you for joining us this morning. We want to start with some breaking news. The Anoka County Sheriff's Office has been on the scene of a standoff in Andover. This has been going on for a while now. Fox 9's Bill Keller is there, and he has the very latest for us. Good morning, Bill.
Back to you.
All right, Bill, thank you. Well, this morning, Minneapolis police are investigating yet another deadly shooting. Officers were called to the 4100 block of Aldrich Avenue North for reports of shots fired just before 6:30 last night. Police say a man was shot and then taken to North Memorial in a private vehicle where he later died. Investigators are now trying to track down the shooter. And for 4 straight days now, someone has been shot or stabbed to death in Minneapolis. And now city leaders are asking for help to stop the violence.
That uniform.
Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey requesting help now from the FBI and the Hennepin County Sheriff's Department after this spike in gun violence. Sheriff Dave Hutchinson of Hennepin County says his department is ready to respond. He believes the recent unrest since the death of George Floyd has created a breeding ground for crime.
The criminal element is emboldened. We're having some issues.
Hutchinson says his deputies are not working overtime just to add extra patrols to the street. Instead, they're using joint intelligence to target and go after violent criminals. St. Paul Public Schools are cutting ties with that city's police department. In a 5-1 vote last night, the school board approved a resolution to stop using school resource officers provided by the St. Paul Police Department. As part of the resolution, the superintendent will have to develop a safety plan that does not include school resource officers. In a statement from Police Chief Todd Axtell, he says the department is disappointed by the board's decision, and even though officers will not be in schools, they will do whatever they can to protect and support students. Minneapolis schools cut ties with the MPD earlier this month. A state trooper has been charged with felony stalking, accused of stealing nude photos from a woman's cell phone. According to the complaint, 36-year-old Albert Keene of Dayton was at the scene of a car crash in Minneapolis back in March. Keene detained a 25-year-old woman as a possible drunk driver and then took her cell phone. She later discovered nude photos of herself were texted from her phone to an unknown number. Investigators found 3 photos of the woman on Keene's phone. The State Patrol calls the allegations reprehensible. Keene is on leave during that investigation. If you are noticing a lot more fireworks going off in neighborhoods across the Twin Cities, you're definitely not alone. The city of Minneapolis says their 311 center has received more than 300 complaints about fireworks since May 1st. Compare that to 13 calls during the same time period last year. Workers at fireworks shops across the border in Wisconsin say they've definitely noticed a spike in sales.
It's been real big.
I kind of like it though.
Minneapolis police say they would normally try to identify and then ticket people setting off fireworks that are illegal in Minnesota, but they say they simply don't have the resources right now. New this morning, a federal appeals court orders the criminal case against President Trump's former national security advisor, Michael Flynn, be dismissed. In a 2-1 ruling, the U.S. Court of Appeals said that the Justice Department's decision to abandon the case settles the matter, even though Flynn pleaded guilty to lying to prosecutors in Special Counsel Robert Mueller's Russia investigation. A U.S. district judge declined to immediately dismiss the case, seeking to evaluate the Justice Department's unusual request on his own. No word yet if there will be any further appeal. Crowds gather outside the Wisconsin state capitol, tearing down 2 statues and then attacking a state senator. Democratic Wisconsin State Senator Tim Carpenter taking this video. He says he was shooting video of the protesters when he says he was attacked by several people. Carpenter says he was punched in the head, neck, and ribs, and he thinks he may have gotten a concussion. The protests in Madison turned violent following the arrest of a black man who brought a megaphone and a baseball bat into a restaurant. Crowds ended up tearing down 2 statues there. One was of Wisconsin's motto, "Forward." The other was of Colonel Hans Christian Hegg, an abolition activist who died fighting for the Union in the Civil War. And another controversial statue is coming down, this time in Charleston, South Carolina. Hundreds of people there gathering to watch crews remove a statue of former Vice President and pro-slavery advocate John C. Calhoun. Overnight, workers used cranes and they began tearing that statue down from its monument. In the wake of recent unrest, city council members voted yesterday to remove the statue and place it at an appropriate site where they say it will be protected and preserved. Well, the next 2 weeks will be critical to slowing the spread of the coronavirus. That is according to Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's top infectious disease expert. Fauci told lawmakers that there has been a disturbing surge of positive cases, particularly in Texas, Florida, and Arizona. Here's Fox's Casey Stiegel.
Almost Fox 9.
And in just the past few minutes, the state of Minnesota has released its latest COVID-19 numbers. 5 more deaths were reported, and that brings the total death toll to just under 1,400. More than 1,100 of those deaths happened in long-term care facilities. 304 new cases of COVID-19 are now confirmed, and there have been 33,763 total cases. 29,707 patients have recovered. Well, is it possible that millions of Americans had the coronavirus in March and never knew it? A new study that makes a strong case for a massive undercount in those cases. And they were supposed to be the future of transportation, but now it's official. The Segway is dead. Plus, Keith Marler will join us, and we collaborated on our wardrobes today. Keith, I don't know if you can see me, but we've got the yellow happening, and I'm loving it.
I can see you. La la la. We matched the sunshine as well.
Right.
The blue.
Well, welcome back. I'm Amy Hockert. It's time now to check in with our friend meteorologist Keith Marler to talk a little bit about today. And it's starting out as another beautiful summer day. Keith?
Indeed, unless you were up early enough. And forecast coming up at 11:30. Amy?
All right, we'll see you then. Thank you, Keith. We're going to take you live now to Minneapolis, where MnDOT crews are on the scene after a construction crane seems to have toppled from 35W onto the ground. It was nearby where all that construction was happening. So this is a look at the traffic cam in the area of 42nd Street. And it does appear that crane came down, as you can see, in some lanes that were already closed to traffic. So we don't have a lot of information at this point. No word on what caused that crane to come down or if anybody there is hurt. So we're going to keep an eye on it. We'll bring the very latest to you. Growing calls across the country for Facebook to do more to shut down hate speech. Companies like Ben & Jerry's, Eddie Bauer, Patagonia, The North Face, and REI all pulling their ads from Facebook. They're joining the NCAA and Anti-Defamation League in the Stop Hate for Profit campaign. The group says that it is likely even more big name companies will join the cause in the days ahead. It is an end of an era for a product that was supposed to revolutionize transportation. Segway's two-wheeled personal transport vehicle hit the market in 2001, but now production is ending. The creator hoped that it would become popular for everyday use. Instead, police departments and tour companies did embrace the technology. Since 2017, Segway has shifted focus to designing rental scooters for companies like Bird and Lime. Well, millions of coronavirus cases may have gone undiagnosed back in March. Research published in the journal Science Translational Medicine suggests as many as 8.7 million Americans were infected from March 8th to March 28th, but never diagnosed. They used data of people seeking treatment for flu-like illnesses at the time. Researchers say that limited testing and false negative tests led to an undercount. Well, still to come, a gymnast and native Minnesotan caught up in a massive sports scandal in Michigan. And now Netflix is releasing a documentary about the ordeal that sent a teen doctor to prison for victimizing the young women. And the quiet of quarantine is inspiring the winds of winter. How the latest installment of Game of Thrones is coming along. Well, a native Minnesota gymnast is at the center of a new Netflix documentary detailing one of the biggest scandals in recent sports history.
We need to call the authorities.
Gymnast Maggie Nichols is featured in Athlete A. This is about the USA gymnastics abuse scandal, which sent physician Larry Nassar to prison. Athlete A refers to Nichols. She's believed to be the first victim of Nassar to report what happened to authorities. Maggie and her parents, as well as two other abused gymnasts, are prominently featured. Athlete A is now streaming on Netflix. Jimmy Kimmel apologizes for doing sketches in blackface. A video recently resurfaced of him portraying basketball star Karl Malone in blackface back in the late 90s. Kimmel also admitted to using the N-word in a song more than 20 years ago while imitating rapper Snoop Dogg's voice for a track in a 1996 Christmas album. Now, he says he didn't consider it inappropriate at the time, but now he looks back at the sketches with embarrassment. Kimmel recently announced he's taking a summer break and he plans to return to work in September. Some good news for Game of Thrones fans. Author George R.R. Martin says being in coronavirus lockdown has helped him make steady progress on The Winds of Winter, the long-awaited sixth installment in the book series that inspired the HBO mega hit. In a blog post, Martin says he's been holed up in a mountainside cabin, spending several hours a day writing. He says he's hoping to finish The Winds of Winter and publish it in 2021. Well, thousands of voters headed to the polls in several states last night. When we could see those results. Also coming up, kids get back to practice. Youth sports have the green light to return. So how you can make sure to limit the risk during playtime. Stay with us. The voters headed to the polls in several states last night, but we may not know all the results for a while. There were primary elections in New York, Kentucky, and for a congressional seat in North Carolina. Because of a huge increase, though, in those absentee ballots because of the pandemic, it's just too early to call most of those races. In some states, we might not know the full count until next week. Now, here are some of the results we do know. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell easily winning the GOP Senate primary in Kentucky. And it's too early to tell who his Democratic opponent will be. Also, in a stunning upset in North Carolina, a 24-year-old Republican businessman named Madison Cawthorn upset a candidate endorsed by President Trump in the Republican primary for North Carolina's 11th congressional district. That seat was vacated by Mark Meadows, who is now the president's chief of staff. Well, not a hate crime, but a coincidence. That is what the FBI says about the noose found in NASCAR driver Bubba Wallace's garage at Talladega Speedway. Investigators say a garage door rope that was tied in a knot that resembled a noose had been there since last year. They say nobody could have known that Wallace would be assigned to that stall last weekend. One of Wallace's crew members discovered the rope and reported it. NASCAR says it was the only garage stall with that kind of pull-down rope, and Wallace remains defiant, saying it was a noose, and he's never seen another garage rope like it. Well, bring back the peanuts and Cracker Jacks. It's almost time to play ball. Major League Baseball is back on. The players have now agreed to a 60-game season, so that'll start July 23rd or 24th. They'll report to training a week from today, and the league and players union had failed to reach an agreement during months of negotiations, so Commissioner Rob Manfred imposed this 60-game schedule based on an agreement with the union back in March. The league will be split geographically to limit travel, so the Twins will mostly play teams in the AL and NL Central divisions. It's 11:30. Thanks so much for being with us. I'm Amy Hockert. We're going to check in now with meteorologist Keith Marler. Keith, a lot of these days start out really nicely, and then we get some rain toward the end of the afternoon. So are we going to see the same kind of thing today?
At fox9.com.
I'm going to spend my lunch hour reading all about it. How about that?
Pondering the Saharan desert dust.
All right, Keith, thanks very much. We continue to following some breaking news out of the North Metro this morning. One man is dead after an hours-long standoff in Andover. This all started around 6:30 this morning when police got a call about a fire on the 300 block of Andover Boulevard. You can see these pictures from Twin Cities Fire Wire shows that flames and thick smoke were shooting out of the house. But firefighters couldn't battle the flames because when they arrived, a man with a gun was outside making threats. Now that led to a standoff that lasted several hours, with the man holed up inside of a trailer on the property, and that situation ended shortly before 10 o'clock.
And ended up deceased within that trailer.
Now, police are still trying to piece everything together, but they say there is no threat to the public and nobody else is hurt. Andover Boulevard between University and Prairie remains closed as that investigation continues. Some local sports teams can finally take the field again after weeks of only being able to practice. Starting today, sports like baseball and soccer can now play games and scrimmages against other teams. Teams can also start holding full team practices as long as it's fewer than 25 people. Since June 1st, practices have been limited to groups of 10. Health officials recommended phasing in these changes, starting with the inter-team scrimmages and then playing local teams in 2 weeks. During the Fox 9 Buzz this morning, Dr. Gregory Sywick talked about some of the ways we can limit risk.
I think those things.
Dr. Sywick also recommends teams practice social distancing as much as possible. Indoor sports can start practicing 1 week from today. Meantime, here are the latest coronavirus numbers in Minnesota. Another day of single-digit deaths. The death toll now sitting at just under 1,400 after 5 new deaths were reported today. More than 1,100 of those deaths happened in long-term care facilities. 304 new cases of COVID-19 were confirmed, and there have been 33,763 total cases. 29,707 patients have recovered. There's been another deadly shooting in Minneapolis. This one happened around 6:30 last night on the 4100 block of Aldrich Avenue North. Officers there called to reports of shots fired. Police say a man was shot and then taken to North Memorial in a private vehicle, and that is where he later died. Investigators now trying to track down the shooter. It has been 4 straight days in Minneapolis where someone has died in a shooting or a stabbing. And one of those deadly shootings happened in Uptown over the weekend. Minneapolis police there say that they're making significant headway into that investigation. Now, 1 person was killed, 11 people were injured, and some are still in the hospital recovering. That includes 2 best friends. They are mothers to 2 young children. They say they were waiting to get into a bar on Saturday night when those shots rang out. They were both hit in the legs, and they are both now recovering in the hospital.
We're just hoping anything.
Meantime, police initially reported a 12th person was shot and killed in that Uptown violence, but now they say that that man, Cody Pollard, was actually shot in downtown Minneapolis. They say he was taken to the same hospital as the Uptown victims, and that's what led to the confusion. The MPD apologized for any hardships that mistake had caused. Well, a horrifying scene near a Minneapolis park where a youth football practice was underway. It sent players, coaches, and parents running for cover.
A couple times with him.
That team was practicing in Jordan Park on Monday night when they heard what they thought were fireworks until realizing that bullets were flying over their heads. They say there were at least 50 shots and they were coming from a passing car.
Next thing I know in my life.
Well, thankfully, nobody there was hurt, but the coaches say they will never practice at Jordan Park again. Coming up, some of golf's biggest names set to hit the links in a month in Minnesota. We're going to find out who is on the list to play at the 3M Open. Plus, a group that's raised millions of dollars for their efforts to defund the Minneapolis Police Department, now vowing to use some of that money to give back to the community. Over the past few weeks, opposition to the Minneapolis Police Department has been growing. A campaign calling for the defunding and disbanding of the MPD has now raised more than $30 million. And now they're trying to figure out how to best use all of that money. Here's Fox 9's Maury Glover.
Fox 9 News.
A member of the Minnesota Wild steps up to help rebuild the community following all of the unrest. Defenseman Matt Dumba started the Rebuild Minnesota initiative. This will support the Lake Street Council, which aims to help businesses recover from the damage caused during the rioting that followed the death of George Floyd. Dumba started the campaign last week. He says the response so far has been overwhelming.
We're more than that. I'm trying to do the right thing.
Dumba has set up a website for his donations. He will match contributions up to $100,000. Some of golf's biggest stars will be teeing it up in Blaine next month at the 3M Open. Brooks Koepka, Dustin Johnson, Matthew Wolff have all committed to playing in the tournament. Koepka and Johnson are both in the top 10 world rankings. Wolff is the tournament's defending champion. The 3M Open begins July 20th at TPC Twin Cities, and there will be no fans in attendance because of the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. And with more pandemic restrictions being lifted, It is time for a summer tradition here in Minnesota. Town Ball is finally back, and Fox 9 is excited to be getting involved in the fun once again. So we will be live from Bird Island tonight as the Bullfrogs take on the Cologne Hollanders. Chief Meteorologist Ian Leonard, sports reporter Pierre Nugent will be there. They'll be broadcasting live, so you can watch during Fox 9 News at 5, 6, and 7. Well, there is a new social distancing fitness craze. It's hot yoga domes. The 50 clear bubbles are now set up in a park in Toronto. They each have their own built-in heating system for the hot yoga part, and they also have fans to cool it down if it gets too hot. The dome gets sanitized after each class, and apparently people are flocking to them because it gives them a chance to work out in a class-like setting again. All right, still to come, a Brooklyn Park entrepreneur hoping to connect with the next generation. We're going to have the inspiring story behind Rocky Robinson. And a business that just launched last year, seeing a huge surge in customers, and it comes at just the right time. Stay with us. Well, the world's largest marathon called off because of the coronavirus. The New York City Marathon will not happen this year. And this year was supposed to be the 50th anniversary of that event. It started back in 1970, and participation has grown since then. Last year, more than 53,000 runners crossed the finish line. After losing her full-time job last year, a Brooklyn Park woman decided to start her own business. And now, Audra Robinson is the force behind a brand that's touching the lives of young Black girls. Here's Fox 9's BC O'Neilly-Erie with that story.
It is Erie, Fox 9.
Robinson eventually wants to donate a portion of her sales to help put Black girls through college. For now, she's accepting donations to help those impacted by recent riots. And we have a link to her website at fox9.com. In the wake of the ongoing protests against police brutality, people are showing support for Black-owned businesses in a big way. There are now directories of Black-owned businesses. Locally, one of those owners is Gerard Class. He's co-owner of Soul Bowl. He says that these lists have made a big difference. In fact, on Juneteenth, they had their highest sales day ever, and he's had a surge in social media followers. But he says there have been challenges as well. Following the death of George Floyd, employees were all navigating through that difficult situation, but also feeling the need to be there for neighbors who were also grieving.
Soul food is always needed.
When the pandemic hit, Class started a program called Food for Your Soul. They've provided 5,000 meals to those in need. In fact, just yesterday, they fed the volunteers at Sanctuary Covenant Church in North Minneapolis. You can donate to that program on Venmo or their Cash App. Just search for Soul Bowl MN. As the nation gets ready to celebrate the 4th of July, Wallet Hub has a list of the most patriotic states. The rankings are based on voter turnout, military enlistment, and veterans per capita. New Hampshire was deemed the most patriotic for another year, followed by Wyoming, Idaho, and Alaska. Wisconsin comes in at number 8, and then Minnesota right behind at number 9. The least patriotic state, according to this ranking, is New Jersey. Well, get ready for a safari in the metro. The Minnesota Zoo has a new way to see the animals from the comfort of your own car. Those details coming up right after this. Starting today, you can explore the Minnesota Zoo in a whole new way. It's debuting Beasley Boulevard. This is a 30-minute drive along the zoo's northern trail, and it passes by dozens of habitats. Now, this is a way for the zoo to also raise some much-needed money during the pandemic. Beasley Boulevard runs through July 5th, and tickets must be purchased in advance on the zoo's website. Some visitors decided to take a quick hop into a neighborhood in Australia. A garbage collector on his morning route capturing a group of kangaroos bounding down the street. The man recorded the kangaroos jumping around early yesterday morning. He says the animals come from a nearby golf course. Just fun to watch them. All right, finally here at 11, it is a bittersweet day here at Fox 9. We are saying goodbye to a longtime colleague. Photojournalist Steve Painovich, we know him as Paino, has retired after 42 years in the business. For the last several years, he's worked side by side and behind the camera every morning with Bill Keller out in the field. Well, this morning, Bill helped arrange a special socially distanced farewell parade for Paino right here at the station. Enjoy your retirement, Paino. We will definitely miss you. And thank you for joining us, everybody. Join us again at 5. Until then, Wendy Williams is coming up next.